Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're diving into a piece of legislation that might sound a bit, well, niche at first. But its core purpose is actually surprisingly compassionate and practical too. It can have a really profound impact on everyday lives, especially, during the most difficult times. Our focus for this deep dive is specifically the Assessment of Damages Act, 1969. And our mission, really, is to explain this consolidated act in a clear, engaging way. So whether you're just curious about how these things work, or maybe you're a law student looking to solidify your understanding, you should walk away feeling, well, truly well informed.
That's exactly right. Our source material comes directly from the consolidated excerpts of the official act document itself. So what we really aim to do today is extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from these sources, give you a kind of shortcut to understanding this crucial legal framework. We'll cover its fundamental purpose, its key provisions, the legal context it operates in, and maybe most importantly, its practical implications and real-world significance.
Right. So to really get to the heart of it, what fundamental problem was this act actually designed to solve? What was the driving force behind creating it in the first place?
Well, at its absolute core, the Act exists to amend the law, specifically relating to how damages are assessed for loss of support. That's when it's a direct result of a person's death. So imagine a family loses, say, the main breadwinner. Loss of support basically means the financial contribution that deceased person would have, continued to make to their dependents. The Act steps in to clarify precisely how compensation for that loss should be calculated. And there's a very clear focus on protecting vulnerable individuals, those who relied on the deceased for financial stability.
Okay, this next part is where it gets really interesting, I think, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. We know the Act's purpose now, but what's the actual mechanism it introduces? What's the sort of big rule that changes how these damages are calculated?
Yeah, what's fascinating here is a central mechanism. You find it in Section 1, subsection 1 of the Act. It states very clearly that when damages are assessed for loss of support due to a person's death, and this is specifically for causes arising after March 19th, 1969, when the Act commenced, no insurance money, pension, or benefit which has been or will or may be paid as a result of the death shall be taken into account.
Ah, okay. So if I'm hearing that right, the Act is essentially saying, look, don't penalize someone for being financially prudent. It's about making sure that if someone was responsible, maybe they had life insurance or a pension, that foresight doesn't actually reduce the legal compensation their family gets for the actual loss of support. Is that the idea?
Exactly. That is the critical takeaway. You've nailed it. If a family loses their breadwinner, any life insurance payout they receive, or a pension fund lump sum, even certain other benefits, it doesn't reduce the amount of damages they can claim for the financial support they've lost. It's really about recognizing these are separate things, separate forms of financial security.
That makes perfect sense. It feels intuitively fair. But those terms benefit, insurance money, pension, they sound quite broad. Can you maybe clarify how the Act specifically defines them? Because that precision must be really important here.
Oh, absolutely. The Act is actually quite precise. It defines these terms in Section 1, subsection 2, leaving very little room for ambiguity. So, for instance, benefit. It isn't just some vague term. It means specific payments, like from friendly societies or trade unions, things for relief or maintenance of a member's dependents. So it ensures that even smaller community-based support payments won't reduce a claim. And insurance money is also broad, yes, but defined. It covers the payout, sure, but also refunds of premiums, any interest on those premiums, meaning, like you said, all forms of financial foresight are protected. And similarly, pension is defined very comprehensively. It includes refunds of contributions, interest on those, and importantly, any lump sum payment or gratuity from a pension or provident fund, or even payments from an employer if it relates to the person's employment. These definitions really hammer home the intent, a comprehensive approach to what cannot be used to reduce those damages claims.
Wow. Yeah. It's fascinating how carefully they've defined those terms to ensure that fairness. But maybe stepping back a bit, what's the broader story behind this act? Who actually enacted it? And has it changed much over the years?
Well, it originated in South Africa. It was enacted by its legislative bodies at that time, the state president, the Senate, the House of Assembly, which tells you something about its historical foundation, its context back then. But it's definitely not a static relic. It's, a living piece of law. It's evolved. For example, Section 2 of the Act was actually repealed way back in 1996, which just means that part of the original law was removed, updated, basically, to reflect changing needs or legal landscapes. And more recently, just last year, in fact, its administrative oversight, the sort of day-to-day management, that was officially transferred to the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. And this just confirms it's a current actively managed piece of legislation. It gets reviewed, updated. It was last checked, apparently, in March 2025 with updates from October 2024.
Right. Okay. So we've broken down the what and the how and even touched on its history. But let's bring it back to you, the listener. What does this all truly mean in the real world? What are the tangible impacts of these legal rules?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this act is a really powerful safeguard. It's quite significant. It ensures that the financial prudence of an individual, someone diligently paying into life insurance, contributing to a pension fund, that doesn't inadvertently cut down the legal compensation their dependents are entitled to after their death. You can think of it this way. That insurance or pension, that was always meant as a separate safety net. It was intended to provide for the family regardless, not to offset the actual financial loss of support caused by, say, a wrongful death.
Hmm. So it's really about making sure that compensation for the loss of support is distinct. It's kept separate, not diluted by these other payouts. That sounds like it provides immense clarity, actually, in what could otherwise be a very confusing, very emotionally charged situation.
Absolutely. It promotes a deep sense of fairness, and it actively prevents situations where families might be, frankly, shortchanged in their claims for damages. It ensures a more complete financial recovery for the specific loss suffered due to a death, separate from any existing financial planning the person did. Plus, it provides a really clear legal guideline, which simplifies things. It simplifies what could otherwise be incredibly complex, maybe even contentious damage assessments. And for law students listening, understanding this act is absolutely crucial. It's fundamental for comprehending how damages get calculated in civil claims, what are often called delictual claims in South African law related to wrongful death. It really is a cornerstone for these types of cases.
Okay, so to sort of wrap up our deep dive then, the Assessment of Damages Act, 1969, it really stands as quite a concise but genuinely powerful piece of legislation. It clarifies exactly how damages for loss of support are assessed after someone dies. It's a clear directive. Other financial benefits, things like insurance payouts or pensions, they are not to be used to reduce the compensation dependents are legally entitled to, not for their ongoing loss of support anyway. It's really a perfect example, isn't it, how just a few lines of legal text can have such a profound protective impact on people's lives, especially during their most challenging times.
And this raises an important question, perhaps for us all to consider. How do legal frameworks like this, even the ones that seem quite straightforward, maybe even technical, how do they reflect these underlying societal values? Values about protection, about fairness, responsibility? What other areas of law might hold similar, maybe hidden protections? Protections that we often take for granted, but which play a vital role in people's lives every day.
That's definitely food for thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Assessment of Damages Act, 1969. We really hope you feel a little more well-informed now, and perhaps even a bit more curious about the legal landscape that surrounds us.